Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Rydell, actor and now podcast host, I guess. That guy you've seen on a million TV shows and movies, but you still do not know my name.
And I'm David Allen Bache, actor and sometimes producer. And you also recognize me from lots of films and TV shows, but you probably couldn't name one of them right now if I paid you to.
The two of us and our guests are going to let you in on some secrets on how to make it as an actor and share some private stories from the many movies and TV shows that we've worked on.
That's right. We're going to interview a special guest each week, and we'll get their best advice and wisdom for you about how to break into this business and how to stay in it. And yes, again, there will be stories, stories, stories. So, let's get to it.
This is Confessions of a Working Actor.
Okay, so last week we heard my origin story, but Chris Rydell, can you give our listeners the quick version of how you got started in this wacky business?
Well, let's just say I grew up around a bunch of actors. My mother was an actress. My father was an actor. My mom, as a kid, I would see her on, streets of San Francisco, and Barnaby Jones, and Chips, and Charlie's Angels, and Hawaii Five-0. And she was in Star Trek and Twilight Zone.
What was your mom's name?
My mom was Joanne Linville, and she did over 200 shows. She was one of those. Like, we'd go to the market, and there were always people stopping her, and telling her how much they loved her in this show. I don't know if anybody ever really knew her name, but she was actually a really amazing actress. If you watch her on a few things, you'll be blown away. Best friends with Marlon Brando, studied with Stella Adler.
Wow.
My father was a soap star in the 50s when, it was live TV.
Yep.
Was in Crime in the Streets with John Cassavetes and James Whitmore, acted opposite James Dean in some crazy TV shows when they first started. And, went on to be a director, directed John Wayne, Steve McQueen, James Caan, and a bunch of stuff, Henry Fonda, Catherine Hepburn. So I was surrounded around two crazy actor artists. And
that'll do it.
I didn't think there was any other way. I went to study theater at Yale for a minute with John Hammond and Earl Gister. I went to SUNY Purchase and studied theater with Joan Potter. I came back to LA in my late teens and early 20s and studied at the Loft. And I just, as a kid, I had been, my father, made me do some stuff in some films. So, he'd be like, you're doing this scene, and I'd be like, oh, okay,
All right.
And I got the bug.
Because he was directing.
He was directing these films, and he'd be like, you're going to be in this scene. And I'd be like, I don't want to be in the scene with Henry Fonda and Catherine Hepburn.
Wait a minute. So that must have been on Golden Pond.
Yeah, that was on Golden Pond.
Dude.
So, it was 2 hours in front of the camera,
Right.
And my dad's just like, wear your clothes you're wearing and get out there and just, be yourself, be an asshole, And I just got the bug. Actually, the honest truth was, I'd done a couple scenes when I was 8 years old, 10 years old with James Caan, but Henry Fonda turned to me and he said, you think it's funny being old? And it was about 6 months before he died. Oh. And no one had ever been that honest with me in any scene. Like, I was like, oh my God, that was amazing. I was stunned.
Yeah.
My heart just stopped. Like, it was like, I was just reading lines and he just turned and it was like full of so much life. And I thought to myself, that's what I want to do.
And there you have it.
And then basically that's my...
That's amazing.
And so I grew up around two crazy actors, and I guess, we're about to interview two people that are married.
I was just going to say, speaking of two crazy actors, this week we're actually talking to two of them, wonderfully crazy like a fox, both of them. And so because there's two guests this week, we will expect double the wisdom and double the advice and double the fun. So he's been in a whole bunch of things, a veteran theater actor, Chicago Fire, Instinct, Good Wife, lots of shows. She's been in dozens of TV shows, including Boss with Kelsey Grammar and a whole bunch of other things. We're going to get into it. Also a seasoned New York theater actor. And Chris, you said they're married to each other, is that right?
That's what I heard. Hopefully still married. Welcome, Jenny. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. So we have
Hey.
Jenny Mudge and Chris Coffey.
I love Coffey.
Only one other person called him Coffey.
That's true. Yeah, there's only one other person.
Yeah.
But no, it is coffee, like what you might drink in the morning
All right. Well,
or all day long.
We'll go with that because that sounds more caffeinated for us.
I
So
mean,
that's perfect.
Coffee, I somehow feel kind of.
It's recently been
got
a
good
thing.
ring to
I know
it.
it
It
does.
does. Sounds a little French or a little exotic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Well,
Chris, I love that origin story we just were listening to. Incredible.
Oh, yeah. Well, as a young boy, it was a crazy life I led with two. They loved to argue. My parents were passionate about everything and fought tooth and nail until my mom actually crossed the Rainbow Bridge about a year ago. And, they fought until the day they died. It was amazing.
Their love language. But they didn't have to fight about self-tapes, right? I'm assuming they were.
No, they didn't
Right.
have to do that.
That's right. Oh, my God.
Oh my God.
What? You guys fight about self-tapes? Wait a minute. Let's get into
What do
this.
you mean? What are you even talking about?
All right, Chris and Jenny, which one of you is easier to work with shooting a self-tape audition at home?
Oh, for sure.
I know we
She-
have no video, I know, but you should have seen the look on Jenny's face just now. Yes.
No,
We just finished one.
we just finished one, and she's a one-take wonder. So in that way,
Not a good take,
In
just
that
one.
way, expediency is the thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
as a reader, I have to, try and keep up with her. I'm not even on camera.
Yeah.
He's very, very
And I'm the
patient
guy
with me
who-
when I am recording. He's less patient with me when he is recording. I would, because you're very generous on as the reader.
I like to take many takes,
I'm not.
and I don't feel necessarily like the first 5 are good ones. I'm just kind of warming up in a way. And
Right.
she's like, "Aren't we done yet?"
Well, see, that's the thing. My wife says when she's a reader with me, because I'm also married to an actor, she says after that 5th one, when I'm just feeling I'm warmed up, she's like, you should have done those 5 without me. You should have done those in your head and been ready to go the second we turned on the camera. And I was like, whoa, okay, Mr. DeMille. Geez, okay.
Right.
I mean, I'm kind of maybe of a similar mindset, but mostly because it's such torture personally to do them. So I'm just like, how can I make this as quick as possible? That's really
Right.
for my own ones that I'm just like, how can I just make this be as small a part of my day as possible?
And you're right, because you want to make it as painless as possible for the reader. And so in that way, yeah, there is some truth to sort of being as prepared as possible prior to actually having somebody step in and help you for free on,
Does
we know
Alicia ever say to you, sometimes I'll be like, act like I'm not your wife. Act like I'm your friend that is reading with you. Act like I'm not your wife.
I feel like that just goes without saying in my whole marriage. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah.
Act like I'm not.
So we want to get into some questions here. And just Chris, you'll be chivalrous and Jenny will go first. And we have hopefully seasoned actors listening, but also young actors who are wondering what it's like to be a working actor, how to get into the business, that kind of thing. So Jenny, we're wondering how you got started.
I got started in way less of a fancy circumstance than Chris did, because I was really from this Chris here, not this Chris, but because I was not from any kind of artistic family at all. But I kind of was in dance school very young, and just quickly kind of fell in love with seeing a fellow Girl Scout did a play, The Miracle Worker. And I was like, what the hell is this? And how do I do this? I think that was the first play I saw. And then I lived in Ohio then. I was born and grew up in Ohio for a little bit. And then just was determined to figure this thing out. And I would read the paper. I don't know what that was about. That was just a thing I did. And I found these auditions for a community theater production of Wizard of Oz and auditioned and did that. So that was kind of how I fell in love and was just like, I'm going to be an actor when I was 8. And that was it. So I just did the whole undergrad thing and then the grad school thing, because by then I was in Rhode Island. I had skipped a year of high school because I wanted to be an actress so bad. And I just had to get to it. And I didn't know of any other way to get to it than to like go to school, because I didn't know anybody. There's nobody in my family. It was really just like, how does this happen? There's no internet. It's in the olden days. So I was a backstage scourer. I was a Ross Reports, looking at that. I was in Rhode Island. So the Boston market was where I got my professional start and got my cards, my first union cards. I ended up training at Trinity Rep for my MFA and then stayed on as a company member there for a little bit. And that was amazing because it was the first time I was with professional actors and they were very much like, you're young, we're going to adopt you. You're one of our kids now, which is still true. I'm still very close to the company and the company members and my teachers from that time. So I feel like I was kind of raised in like an old school rep theater environment that, doesn't really exist anymore. The theaters have it. And then had to kind of figure out the New York scene, thrown into that pond. I mean, I chose to because I had to get out of Rhode Island. It's small.
Right.
So that was kind of that's the origin story.
I like it. I like that story. I was trying to figure out how to get out of the business, and you were trying to figure out how to get into the business.
We had social media back then.
Yeah. Jenny, tell us something, because we have a lot of listeners that are, like David said, that are just beginning. Tell us something maybe that you know now that you wish you had known when you started.
Yeah. I think that this was said to me, but you know how it's like everything, you kind of have to hear things a lot to really, to grow up a little bit sometimes to have them sink in. But one of our incredible actors from our company is an actor, Richard Jenkins, who's just a genius, beautiful actor and a beautiful person. He and his wife, she's an amazing choreographer. And when I decided to leave the company, which was a little controversial because people, didn't always leave. He had run the company also and then did a lot of different stuff. And I told him, I was like, Dick, I'm thinking of doing this. Is this crazy? And he said, well, of course you must. You have to go and you have to like fly the nest. He goes, and remember, you've never been to New York. No one's ever met you. You're the only you. So you're just going to go and be yourself. And it was very beautiful in the moment. I was like, I know what everything means. But he was so right in all the profound and actually super shallow ways of like what you look like, what you sound like, what you're good at and what you're not good at and you don't want to do. And I wish I had applied that sooner because I'm better at applying it now. Again, I don't know if that's time and experience, but I encourage my own students to kind of know that they're the only one. I mean, it's so simple, right? It's very free to be you and me, but it's true. There is no other you and there won't ever be. So the more you dig in and find out those things that you can bring to something and your likes and dislikes, because everything is not for you. And that's one thing too. I kind of did know that early, like everything is not for me and I'm not right for everything. And that's all right.
Well, that's a really good piece of advice. And I want, Jenny, we heard you say your students, and so we'll ask you about that. But Jenny teaches and is a spectacular teacher as well. But that's such a great thing to remember. We still say now, my wife and I and friends and I still say, like, either the part's meant to be for you or it's meant to be for someone else. And you can't try to be that other person or be what they want you to be. You either get it or you don't. It's either for you or for someone else, and move on. That's it. And that's another good point is you're the only you that's like you. I wish I knew that back then, too. It's very
freeing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I wish I had known that a long time ago. And you never know where your career is going to take you. I mean, you never, that's easy for you to say now, right? You didn't ever expect to be on Broadway. You didn't expect to be, performing on the West End in London with Matthew Perry. I mean, you've had some amazing jobs, amazing experiences. And it's that experience that I think brings all of us to a place of, here's some wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It is, even when going back to self-tapes, even when you're like, you get something and you're like, I know exactly what to do. I know what to wear. I know what this person is. instead of like, what do they want? Maybe I can try and second guess what they want, and kind of knowing that they won't know what they want till they see it. And all you can do is do your thing at it. And I mean, say the words, don't make up words, but do the thing and do it in your own particular way. And it's either going to be for them or it's not.
Yep.
Very freeing. It saves time too, actually.
But then you don't have to do, 10 takes, because you realize you just do one take that you like,
right.
and you trust that.
Like, here it is.
Yeah, this is me. This is me. And
That's it.
it ain't going to get much better than that.
Yeah.
And
She's very good at just not overthinking it in a way that
There is no perfect.
Yeah.
you trust that if it's supposed to be, it is.
Yeah. And with 22 hours of notice, I mean, really now.
Oh yeah, and I love it when they send you 10 pages or 11 pages with 24 hours notice, and it's like, guys, come on. So you just Chris Coffey, do you want to throw anything out there that you wish you had known when you were first starting out? That you
Well, when I was starting out, it was kind of early 90s era. It was not necessarily looked positively upon, at least in my circles, if you had sort of too many hyphens next to your name. If you were an actor, producer, director, writer, it's like, okay, that means you're actually nothing, which I think is quite different these days. And I think, obviously there were companies like Steppenwolf and other companies where it really was like people would rotate as artistic directors and writers and actors and directors, but that wasn't my circle. And I wish that as a young actor, I had a much better understanding of diversification in the long run.
Yeah.
As opposed to just feeling like I'm an actor and that's what I do and I'm going to pursue this. And, the second I try to look outside of that box, it gets watered down somehow. I think that was my mentality for a long time. It took me a long time to learn that diversification is super key to the marathon that we're on here.
Yeah.
And it's inevitable, and it served me so well once I sort of embraced that.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Great advice. Did you, and that's not something they taught you at Yale. Am I right that you went to the Yale School of Drama?
I did, yeah, I did indeed, and studied with Chris. You had mentioned Earl Gister. Earl
David Hammond and Earl Gister. Yeah,
amazing. Well, Earl was one of my great mentors for sure. But it took me a while to get there. I'd come to New York, gone to Circle in the Square, studied under some teachers here in the city prior to going to Yale. But it was a really good. Sorry about the cat.
Are literally going nuts. They really like your voices, I think. They're really responding to your vibe.
I love it.
But yeah, I would say that no, to be quite honest, Yale did not sort of embrace that idea. I mean, it was there as an option for people if they wanted to pursue it on their own. They could get involved with the Yale Cabaret, and they could direct, and they could write and explore in that way. But it was definitely like one of those optional things that if you were as busy as I was, which was I did like 28 shows in 3 years, I didn't have the time or energy to really commit myself to just pursuing other hats away.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I spent a summer at the Yale Cabaret and I did 7 shows in 8 weeks.
Wow.
And
Jesus.
I was so grateful because we did get to rotate and wear all the different hats. So although I was an actor in the shows, I was, the front of house manager. Then I was the assistant lighting designer, then assistant set decorator, then and we circled around assistant director, assistant choreographer. So we were working with amazing Yale grad students and learned a lot from them, but we did get a chance to do everything. And I also was discouraged from being a producer or a writer or a hyphenate when I was starting out. And now I can honestly say, having produced a couple feature films, I wish I had started that earlier. I don't love producing because it's really, really hard work. I like when someone says, here, say these lines, be funny. But it is an interesting thing, I think, for people to hear, hey, today, if you want to make your own work, create your own content, you can be doing that and be an actor. You could be writing, you could be directing, you can do it all at once, for sure.
And of course, today's technology offers so much we didn't have, which is such a huge bonus. And I kind of envy young actors who are so savvy with all the technology available and just, creating movies on the side and just kind of doing stuff from the ground up at a very early age and just embracing that from the get-go.
These kids that are 14 years old have watched hundreds of times of movies.
Yeah, that's right.
That we had watched at that age. The ability
they have access to everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember, we were just talking about origin stories, and I thought I was going to go into broadcast journalism. My first job, actually, our weird connection is that Jen and I both got our start in the Boston market, a small community of thriving theaters, and there was a lot of commercial work and a lot of films and TV that were going through there at the time, and still there, of course. But I really just I was so fascinated with telling stories, and I finally kind of did a play as an actor for the first time. I had not studied it as a young person or in school in any way, really. I did some small parts in plays in high school, but it wasn't something I ever thought of pursuing as a career. But I really wanted to tell stories. And then finally I jumped into a play and I thought, oh my God, there's the missing link. I actually get to step into the shoes of somebody outside of my world and investigate how they live and how they tick, as opposed to sort of sticking a microphone in their face and asking them questions. I was able to ask myself how I would relate to the world.
Kind of like we're doing right now. That's right.
Well, that's a good transition into another question I have for you, for either of you, which is, sharing a story of a positive experience that either of you had working with another actor or director on one of the, recent jobs you had.
Sure.
We don't do dirt on Confessions of a Working Actor. We do positive. We do tell us.
I like it. Yeah, a clean
tell
dirt.
Us the good stuff. Yeah, well, tell us the we want to hear the inspiring stuff where someone said something surprising or, go ahead, Jenny. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like I've been really lucky to kind of avoid some situations that I maybe didn't want to be in, getting some warnings from people, the networks that go through. And so in terms of getting to do extraordinary work with people who people might know or that might know of, and one of the, it's not super recent, but that comes to mind, and that is I did a little bit of work on this film called Nostalgia by Mark Pillington, and my scenes were with Nick Offerman and Ellen Burstyn. And I was so like, oh my God, this is legendary. How you do when you get to meet the people in that way. And it was such a lovely set. It was an independent film. And by independent film, I don't mean it didn't have any money. You know what I mean? When it feels crazy and there's just no money. It was an independent film set. They wanted to do the story this way. Everybody was calm. It was a great set. Script was great. And I was like, oh, everyone, this is so organized and easy. And then as usual, you build up that thing and you get nervous or whatever. And you sit down and then you look opposite the eyes of someone who is not just famous and acclaimed, but literally can do the thing. And you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is listen, right? When you're working with Ellen Burstyn, you just go, oh, right, she's brilliant. And if I just look at her and listen and just do my job, I don't have to worry about anything because we're in great hands here. As long as I don't screw anything up, we're in great hands. And I feel like that to me was a reiteration of the craft. Whether you're famous or not famous, trophies or not, I was like, oh, this is, I'm in the presence of.
Jenny, I love hearing stories like that. And I remember I worked with Eli Wallach for a long time. He became a dear friend, sort of a surrogate grandfather to me.
You guys did that play, right?
And he used to say when we were doing Visiting Mr. Green, even in the early days, he used to say, if you get stuck, just look in my eyes. If you ever get stuck, you just look me right in the eyes. That's all you're going to need. I'll be there, and then you'll know where you are, and you'll know who you are, and you know what's happening between us.
Oh, that's great.
And there was never a time, over almost a year and a half, that we did a 2-character play, 8 shows a week. There was never a time where when I was stuck or lost or sometimes bored or whatever, where I didn't look him in the eye or he didn't look me in the eye, and we were right back.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
That's a really good. It's a really good reminder.
Well, the first TV job I got out of Yale was with Law and Order, of course. And I know a lot of actors have told this similar story, but it was, of course, opposite Jerry Orbach. I will say, maybe I'll give you a little dirt and a little.
Yes, that's really okay. I didn't mean
a combination.
I didn't mean we don't do any dirt. I mean,
no, but it's a lesson in contrasts. Really, my first job with Jerry Orbach was just such a wonderful experience, and I just felt so connected to him, and he treated me like a series regular, even though I'm there for a couple of days, and talked to me and asked me about who I was and my story, and welcomed me in the HMU trailer and all the stuff where you're just like, oh, this is how TV is. This is amazing. And you don't realize how just the generous spirit that he was until you start getting on other sets. And, the dirt part of the story is you get on another Law and Order show and you're like, oh, there's the polar opposite of generosity. And there's some cruelty happening here. And I've never seen anything like this on set. And so you appreciate those moments even more so looking back on it. But Jerry Orbach, of course, and I've heard the story many times from other people.
I know.
He just was one of those guys. So in turn, the more I work in front of the camera and dealing with, or meeting new young actors, I always try to emulate Jerry Orbach. Of course.
Yeah.
Just open your heart to them. They're there for a couple of days. It's a scary thing. They're alone. They're they don't know what the energy of the set is like. So you're trying to give them the best experience.
I like that. I feel like that is what I kind of believe. Like I think we're all, kind of in the same demographic of age group where we're like right in the middle. We have our elders that are elder, beautiful ones that we got to learn from. And then we have this whole new generation behind us. And speaking to not to be precious about it, because it's not actually, the word craft isn't that precious. It's a trades, you know what I mean? Like it's a real craft, and it is something that is passed down, and it is something that is taught in person. You can't just read about how to act and then know how to do it. And that is the magic to me. That is the secret sauce, and also what can be missing so often and can create, whether it's it's antagonistic or whether it's just not there. And that's when I don't enjoy. I'm like, oh wow, we're really just telling stories if we can't move forward with the generosity and acknowledgement of that.
My father used to say to me, he goes, you better treat the craft service person with the same respect that you treat the director or another actor or, the grip, or because everybody is making this work. No one person is making this work. We're all here. They're all here for you, maybe, to get this on film. But, we actually have a special segment that we do with all our guests. And this is your worst audition story ever.
We were both.
We were.
And it's
were
it
were
wasn't
you ready for that?
It's not a self-tape that you just did.
No.
At home.
Any of those.
But can you give us?
Who's going to go first?
He's got a really good one.
I got a pretty classic one.
All right, Chris. Go for it.
It's definitely of a moment in time. But this was probably circa early aughts, and I was doing an audition at a small downtown theater, very respected. I mean, it was Rattlestick. It's a great space, great theater, great history. Of course, I wanted to work there. I don't remember the play. I don't remember the director. I have no memory of what this project was. But
it was good. It was a good play.
I really wanted I loved the play. I loved the role. And they were like, okay, well, the director's in London, so you're going to come to the Rattlestick and we're going to Skype you in. And of course, you may remember Skype circa, 2002.
It was probably more like 2007 or 2008. It was a little bit, but it was still terrible.
It was still terrible.
Right.
But so they had an intern or somebody follow me around on stage with a laptop.
Wait, Jenny's literally falling out of the frame with laughter right now.
When he came home, he was so pissed. He's like, you will not believe how.
All right, tell us. All right, tell us.
No, it just, of course,
you're on stage. It's a theater audition.
It's a theater audition, and yet there's a delay, of course, a sound delay. And of course, there's glitches in the video. So this intern is sort of following me around on stage with their laptop as I'm like, acting this scene, and there's another person reading. But there was a lot of movement. So I was kind of bouncing around. It was an empty stage, so I felt free to do it.
Use the space.
Yeah, I think they were like, use the space and we'll just follow you around. I'm like, okay, great. And of course, the director's like, okay. And, I'd stop the audition and there'd be complete silence. And then we'd have to like reboot the thing. And there was about, it felt like an eternity, like just the most absurd example of not being in the moment when you're trying to desperately do just that.
I love it.
And it's not like you can recover from your shame in your living room. Like now when you have a bad Zoom audition, you just be like, all right.
That's true.
You had to be, you were like you were with the whole staff except the director. So you couldn't even have that, like, at least the privacy that's outside the box.
That's true. If I could look ahead.
It's full body 3D shame.
If I could look 15 years ahead and be like, your life is going to be on Zoom.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what Zoom is.
Yeah.
I love it. Jenny, can you top that? What do you got?
I think that's really good. I do have a weird secret in that I actually really like auditions. I love to audition. I love going. It's like a weird thing. It's just something I love. Once I decide.
We're going to add in a spooky sound effect or something, right? When you said, I love auditions, we're going to, yeah.
I know that's really weird. I will say that I think I've blocked the most humiliating ones out, but if we're going to do like dirt, I'll do my dirt one. Cause I've got a lot of like weird ones. Like Edward Albee told me not to wear these certain shoes again. So I didn't. I got a call back, didn't get the part. Other ones, like I have funny ones like that actually like it either ended in me getting it or getting called back. So, but this one was an offer too. But this one was just one of those that was very frustrating in that it was a regional summer job. So like fun, but also like not a Broadway musical, which always entails those 10 auditions and callbacks and dance calls and music halls. This was a straight show for a summer gig. And I went in and I auditioned and then they switched me to another part, but they're like, can you come back for the callback for both parts? And I was like, sure, 25 pages. There was one. It was a Noel Coward. So I was like, but I like auditioning and it was fun. British dialect, blah, blah, blah. So I come back in, I do it again. I audition for both parts. Super fun, great. They're like, great. I get a call from agents. They want you to come in for a third callback. And I was like, wow, this is like for $585 a week for 6 weeks. And I, with all respect, like this is a lot of auditioning and I have already done half the play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no. They want to see you act opposite the guy. So they had switched fully to one part. There's only one part. So I walk in and I'm like, oh, there's the guy. There he is. So nice to meet him. And then a reader starts doing the scene. And I'm like, oh. And I did the whole audition, basically like looking at the guy, the other actor who apparently was coming to judge me, not to read with me, coming to just like decide on me after 2 full auditions.
Oh my God.
And I know that I must have looked insane because there was the reader who was like, reading this part of this 40-year-old guy, but like 22 years old. He was very good, very valiant, but not the part. So I was like, what's good? What's going on? Like looking and in my British, and I was so cranky. I was really not. That's pretty
rough.
Yeah, because you just wonder how much.
Right. I mean, really. I mean, I auditioned for Woody Allen, and you can't see this visual, but I'm putting my hand in front of my face and I'm peeking through my fingers. And he said, "Tell him not to talk to me. Just have him look over there. Just don't. He's not going to talk to me, is he? Don't let him talk to me." And I did the whole audition, and I was like, all I was thinking with every line was, "You're crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy. You're crazy."
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a great worst audition story. Chris Rydell. Well, how much time do we have? We have a little bit of time left. We
have 3 minutes.
All right, so let's get into just a couple words. You got to distill it down, guys. The two of you need to distill down. This is our last segment.
Right.
Best piece of advice. So although this could be a long story, we want you guys to just distill it down to what you would say to young actors starting out or people who want to get to that next level. What is your best piece of advice?
Always have comfortable shoes.
Except not the ones Edward Albee told you to.
No, those. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Always wear comfortable shoes.
Have them. You can audition in other ones, but always have comfortable shoes.
Have comfortable shoes, Jenny Mudge says, and Chris Coffey.
Embrace your hyphenates.
Embrace your hyphenates. which sounds
I like
dirtier than it is. But yes, that's, I mean,
no, I just, it goes back to that original thing. So
yeah.
I really do want to impart that the earlier you can sort of start expanding yourself and your creativity and not confine yourself with labels, the better you'll be off in the big picture.
Excellent advice.
Excellent advice. I agree. So I just want to remind people listening, this good advice comes from a guy who got to play Joe DiMaggio on Broadway in the Bronx Bombers. This good advice comes from a spectacular actress who was nominated for a Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Actress in a Play. You know, our guests they're giving of their time. They're coming on here to offer this good advice, and they know of what they speak.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chris.
Gene.
Thank you, guys. It was really great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. It's been wonderful.
Have a great day. Well, it's been another great 20 minutes with you, my friend.
And you too, brother. It's been fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Cool. I thought that was awesome. All right, star that.
That was terrific.
And we got another great guest coming up next week, so be sure to tune in again to Confessions of a Working Actor.